morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Happy Tuesday, everyone. We are one day away from the Fed. Wednesday, we get the next FOMC statement and rate decision and the press conference. And then again, Wednesday afternoon, we are also going to get earnings out of Meta and Microsoft. Thursday, we get earnings out of Apple and Amazon. So again, this market is still in a holding pattern, in a wait-and-see mode with a very, very bullish bias still intact. 8-period average continues to rise significantly. Inside day currently right now for the ES, just 19.25 points of range, which is 40% of ADR. The expectation here is to stay mostly range bound. As we mentioned last week, we could go 4-day compression heading into Wednesday. So that means we can go as high as yesterday's high or as low as last Thursday's low and still stay in the range here today. For the most part, any push down, especially after the RTH Open, could be met with bulls looking to defend into that weakness for a push back up within the range. And then that's pretty much it. You're looking for maybe 40 points of range here today. We've been averaging 41 on a 10-day basis. No, rather 41 on a 5-day basis and 48 on a 10-day. But right now, volatility dropping here as we go into Wednesday, and in this holding pattern, we could get again somewhere in the 40-point range. So not expecting too much price action here today. Fade the edges. If we do get a drop that's as deep as, say, the 63.90s, it could be a tremendous opportunity to bounce it back up. All right, looking at the NQ, similar price action out of the NQ here. This one's trading 50% of average range, 110 points today. A melt-up phase, a rising 8-period. You can see here the previous session was a perfect doji here, and right now we're testing the top end of that range. That higher high right now could open up a rotation back down where we're looking at a push back into the previous session's midpoint and maybe down into 23,400. If we drop into 23,400, it could be a bounce back up. So really, we're looking at about a 200-point range today at max. And if we did see some weakness off these highs, it could be an easy bounce back up. As this market stays mostly within range in this uptrend, as the market approaches that big Wednesday afternoon. Looking at crude oil, this one's up 0.7%. For the most part, it stayed mostly within range. And this is something after we had all of this price action here, we basically said, hey, if this holds 64 like we did here, we might go very quiet over the next couple of weeks. And it's now been, what, 4 or 5 weeks later, and we're still seeing that compression. One thing that we've noticed here lately is after a big up day, we've seen some weakness the very next session. And we talked about that here, having that up day, watch for a failed new high for a push right back down, and it played out. Yesterday, a big day up. Do we get a similar rotation back down again today? Any failure at about 66.50, and that's going to open up quite a drop down below. So we'll see if this is the beginning of a push to the upside, or do we get another fade after a strong day here. Remember, this market just really can't get going in either direction. For meaningful movement, you're going to need to get above 68 and especially 70. 64 continues to be a significant floor. At some point, the expectation is a breakout from this range could open up the next 6 to 8 points of expansion. All right, looking at gold futures, this one's up 0.3%. Massive turnaround last week on that initial rally. This was your Wednesday turnaround and a failure into the end of the week. That was a massive wick reversal right there. One thing I mentioned is on the weekly chart, that wick reversal, that huge tail, could be an opportunity to push through the midpoint to the upside down the road and really open up a couple of months of strength down the road. Now, at some point here, we'll see if that can play out sooner than later. It could be 1 to 2 or 3 weeks out before we do that, but very soon that could be the case. So we'll keep an eye on the weekly chart for that. Here we're seeing a bit of a, I guess, a rollover gap up here already as this thing goes to the December contract. Now, Again, we're still range bound until we can get through that 34.50, but the ascending nature of this super large range suggests an upside break at some point. Additionally, that breakout move could be 500 points, which could take us toward 4,000 on the long-term view. So we're talking 6 months out, we could be looking at a 500-point price discovery move that takes us toward 4,000. All right, looking at the YM. Right now, the YM is also seeing compression. We're at 39% of ADR right now. You can barely see today's bar. It's 163 points of range here. A little bit of a bounce back already, but really not super bullish as of right now. This thing is an inside day. It's a low range day. And like we said earlier, if we see early weakness to begin the RTH session, that early move down, especially if it goes below the previous session's low, could be an opportunity to find an opportunity to bounce this thing back up, back to the mid, back up the range, and then stay range bound. Again, last week we were looking for Thursday, Friday, Monday, and Tuesday to finish within a 4-day compression like this as we head into Wednesday's Fed and earnings. So that's the expectation. We can drop all the way down to that Friday low and still bounce back. We can rally all the way up to a high and drop down, but not anticipating any expansion out of this box. All right, looking at Bitcoin, up nearly 0.9% right now. Also an inside day. This thing's building energy. We've talked about this compression for a while. This looks like it has significant legs. Like we talked about before, 20,000 points and easily 15,000 points of range, but up to 20,000 points of range, and it's likely to the upside, which means if we break out through these highs, we're opening up a move that takes us into the 140s if that plays out. Now, at times, we could see a move in the opposite direction first. So what if we drop here, reject, and then rally? Then you're measuring 20,000 points from this low. So, for example, 112.5 plus 20,000, you're looking at 132.5. So that would be a 20,000 point move. Additionally, there could be an instance where this thing rallies up here first, and then we see a massive rejection here at 125. Now we're dropping down into 105 as a 20,000 point move. So I'm not necessarily saying it has to be a perfect breakout and then rally. That 20,000 points can come out in multiple ways. We just have to see which way. But right now, the directional conviction would suggest up. And if we broke down first and rejected, that might be a tremendous buying opportunity. We'll see how it plays out. The other one here is ETH, and nearly getting into our 4,000 target zone. That high yesterday was 39.79. 39.79 there. And remember, when we had it as a buy off 1,400 and then a retest entry buy off 2,200, the goal was to push this thing into 4,000 to 4,200. That was the goal. And 4,200 was the triple off the 1,400 lows. So that was going to be a significant area to take profits there. And we got within 21 points of that 4,000 zone. Do we still get there? Likely yes. Likely yes. But at the same time, we've gotten this close before and then pulled back toward 28 or 2,200 before. And it happened here recently. For example, right there. That was super close that day right there. You can look at the high on that day was 39.80.5. So basically a point and a half beyond today's high or yesterday's high. And then it dropped back toward 2,200. So nothing's perfect here at times. I mean, it got as close as it can get. This one did test it after bouncing off that 22. Is this the high? It's getting close. Again, you can quibble over 20 points or you can kind of get it into the zone. But once we get into 4,200, that's going to be a danger zone for maybe a heavy pullback. It's just what's happened lately. But if we can drive through 4,200, it's going to start to open up some upside. We do have major targets down the road, and some of the biggest targets would take us to 46 and 5,200 when we're ready. Are we ready now? Not sure. We'll see. But like I said, once we've gotten a mature move off of our key entry points here and here, you got to take some profits, if not the entire thing, or at least protect the position once you get up to here. So just some thoughts right there on ETH. That's it for now. We'll see how this plays out the rest of the session. Join us in the trading room. Links below. We'll see you in the trading room later on. Everyone have a fantastic rest of your session. I'll see you soon. Take care.